but my attention was abused. Flatterers and fools will surely agree. If you got a light to shine, let it shine down on me. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. 'Cause nothing's ever good enough for me or you or them or us. The world goes on its weary way, too beautiful for words to say, even words to say. Let it shine till it all falls in place. Let it shine till it all makes sense. Let it shine, Lord, I need a little raise. 'Cause I'm tired of all this bad news and singing these old country blues. angels on fire and air. And there ain't no room for this body of mine up there. I wanna wake up to a dark sky, see the sun's almighty birth, find out what my soul is worth. I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know what my soul is worth. I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know what my soul is worth. I wanna see that moon rise high and full. I wanna feel the rhythm tides push and pull me. I wanna dig down with the devil into this dark weird earth. Find out what my soul is worth. Lord, Lord, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know what my soul is worth. I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know what my soul is worth. Wanna have the whole world at my feet, oh, just to give it all away. I wanna see this thing they call it forever in the clear light of the day. I want the wind to blow straight through me until I rock and sway. I wanna find out what my soul is worth. For my body's in the clay. Lord, Lord, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know what my soul is worth. I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know what my soul is worth. I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I want to know just what my soul is worth. I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know what my soul is worth. I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know just what my soul is worth. I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know, I wanna know just what my little soul is worth.
And now that you're tuned up, I'm going to tune you in. I'm Scott Tamburino, and welcome to TunedIn TV. And wow, that was amazing. Today we welcome Nat Keefe and Erik Yates of Hot Buttered Rum. And guys, welcome to the show.
Thank
Thanks
you.
For coming.
Thanks for having us.
Explosive, wonderful show in Philly last night, and you don't get here enough, guys.
It's been years and years.
Yep. It's been about 3 years. And for the viewers that don't know, can you describe a little bit about the sound of the Hot Buttered Rum Band?
So we're a band that's built around myself and Nat, both songwriters, and a lot of 2-part, 3-part singing, and then a lot of banjo and fiddle playing too. We have a great fiddler, Zebulon Bowles, and a rhythm section with string bass and drums. So some people call it Americana, some people call it bluegrass, some people call it, I don't know, rock and roll or any other kind of moniker. But it's, it really, we call it California's own acoustic music.
Yeah,
because we're trying to do something new with all these instruments that we haven't heard before.
I have fans online calling you North California string stew, jamgrass, newgrass. But Erik, you didn't start off playing banjo, right? You were.
No, I started off playing
woodwinds?
playing woodwinds in college. Nat and I met at Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon, and I was doing a lot of work on clarinet and saxophone and piano, and just doing the diligent kind of music student thing. I was actually learning how to teach music, so I learned all the wind instruments and a bunch of piano. And I've always had an affinity for picking up new instruments, and the banjo seemed like just a fun side project to check it out. And Portland at that time had a pretty good young bluegrass and old time scene, so we'd lock into some of these jam sessions with people that had really been building their lives around this music, and it got to me pretty fast. I came to first from an instrumentalist's standpoint, but I also loved how in this music there's room for people to work on their instruments and become as virtuosic can be. And there's also room for people to focus almost completely on singing and band leading and songwriting.
A lot of good wine in Oregon too.
A lot of good wine, to make that happen.
Manifest your direction. Nat, you started off with guitar also, or
Yeah. Actually, my first instrument was
or?
bass.
Was.
My first love was bass. It was after hearing the Paul Simon Graceland album.
Wow.
And the bass playing on that, and but then I moved to playing the guitar and continued to play both for a long time, and studied a lot of percussion too.
But so you guys through college did bands together, but that's not how Hot Buttered Rum met. You guys met on a hiking trip, right? Is that right?
Yeah, we Erik and I went
Go
to
ahead.
college together, and we had a bluegrass band called the Foggy Notion Boys back then, and that was an amazing band. It was like a party band. We didn't have a fraternity, but we basically had this bluegrass band where we would all hang out, have parties, have these like fun drinking orgies, and it was wild and fun. And then after college, Erik and I got together this different group of friends based off of another great band that our bass player Brian was in, Oversoul. They were at UC San Diego, and sort of the remnants of both those bands got together and formed
Brian
Hot
is the
Buttered Rum.
bass player that we just heard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so but that was a month-long hiking trip. Man,
Oh
I
yeah,
was
so then
exhausted
the
just
hiking trip. So we
Oh.
kind of had the idea for this band, and then we said, well, let's do a big backpacking trip. Yeah, so we did a month-long backpacking trip through the Sierra Nevada mountains of California, and we brought instruments with us and played every day. And I mean, that's just as good as life gets, is being with your buddies up in the high mountains and playing music every day around the campfire and climbing to the top of stuff.
And that seems to be like how you guys tour. I mean, you set your tours through. Well, we were talking earlier about the Idaho thing.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the Idaho Festival that's coming up?
So we're doing for the second year in a row. We're doing this week-long fundraiser called Pickin' on the Middle Fork. It's on the lower fork, I guess.
Middle Fork of the Salmon.
Middle Fork of the Salmon River. Middle Fork. It's on the Middle Fork of the Salmon River, which is one of the most desirable rafting and fishing destinations in the world. I mean, people quite literally come from all over the world to raft on this river. And the guy, Dustin, who's leading the trip, is a really passionate music fan. And he decided, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, he was going to grab the infamous string dusters and do a big fundraiser for a week and bring the instruments out on the river, which you can do, with a good rafting company. And these guides are incredible. They come from the Grand Canyon. They come from, all over the country to guide on this river because it's such a special place. And there's literally a boat with, this banjo and a string bass and a small little drum set, and everything's in dry bags. And then they set it up for you at the end of the rafting day, and we just would transition right from being on the river to performing acoustic. Because one of the cool things about doing acoustic music is that you can do that. You don't need any amplification to make good sounds.
As did
like
that
that.
almost happened today. So I have
Yeah,
to thank
right.
you guys again. Yeah, and talking about no amplification. Last night I got to see you guys at Milk Boy, and I thought that the whole dynamic of you guys live, as opposed to listening to the studio stuff, was just amazing. I mean, especially the part at the end when you did go acoustic and everybody got down off stage and kind of got intimate with the audience, and it was fantastic. And you
That was
guys-
just a ploy to meet girls early on, but we're all married now, so it's like less of a thing. But it still is very
fun.
nice.
But you did do a lot of the new stuff, and I wanted to bring that up. The new, it's a 3 EP thing, Hot Buttered Rum. It's called The Kite and the Key. And it's 3 EPs. And how did you guys come about doing the 3 different projects and the 3 different producers?
Well, I mean, the idea is to give our people a lot to listen to, and maybe equally important, challenge ourselves and continue to challenge ourselves. We've been doing this for getting on 15 years, and so you have to continue to push yourself and reinvent yourself, or else it's going to get stale. And so the idea was to do, instead of one album focusing on one thing, 3 shorter albums, each with a smaller focus. So there's one album that's like our late night throwdown jams. There's one that is all Ralph Stanley tunes, our favorite cornerstone of bluegrass music. And then there's one that is our more dark, earthy originals. And then each one has a different producer. So it was really cool. This last year has been challenging and fun, and we're coming out the other side where it's recreated how we do our thing.
It's amazing. I got to get it at the show last night. I listened to it in my car on the way in today. It's supposed to be released next week. It's on Friday the 13th, right? So, and producers, I mean, really big producers. I mean, you got Tim Carbone from Railroad Earth on the first one, right? So talk about that a little bit and the process with Tim and the relationship you had doing that.
I think the first EP that we did with Tim was probably the most. It had the biggest thrill to it because it was the first time we've recorded in this particular studio that we're working in, and they do all analog, so it's all onto a 2-inch tape, which is a different workflow and a different sound. It was a new experience for us to record without having any visual representation of the music. There's no monitor screens. There's nothing. You're just on tape. So it's the way it's kind of the way it should be or something. I don't know. It's the way it's been done for years.
Where did you record at? Where did you
we
record
recorded
that
at a place called Tiny Telephone Studios in San Francisco. And then it was cool because we were able to give Tim the largest possible number of options as far as songs. We had about 25 to 30 songs that we wanted to pick from, and we knew we'd get 6 for Tim and 6 for Kyle much later in the process. But Tim really got his pick of the litter, and he picked a wholly different bunch of tunes than we thought he would pick. So, like Nat said, it ended up being a lot of stuff that's in minor keys or with slower or mid tempos and stuff that's are more introspective songwriting
Hence
choices.
the term darker, earthy things, right?
Darker, earthy.
Songs. I apologize.
And so and Tim really he likes that's where his sensibilities lead him. And I think he's able to pull out some really, really cool performances and arrangement ideas for this.
That's awesome. The second EP, and I know Nat. So you grew up listening to the Stanley Brothers, or did you both? I read an article that said that that's the stuff that your mom or your father
my dad.
used to
My dad
listen
is
to when you were growing
a
up.
huge bluegrass fan, and I grew up listening to Ralph Stanley and Bill Monroe and Norman Blake and all the old school bluegrass grandfathers from my dad's vinyl music collection.
And when I was growing up, my mother used to listen to Engelbert Humperdinch. I know every song.
Right on. That'll take you somewhere too.
But the person who produced that was Sally Van Meter, and she's an outstanding dobro player. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the process of
Well,
you recording.
Yeah, she really, I mean, boy, that was maybe the most exacting process because we're doing this kind of music that already exists. And so we had these recordings to reference from the 50s and 60s. And so we would listen to it, and we decided to do a few things differently, but we were trying to get after it and recreate the sound that the Stanley Brothers, that Carter and Ralph did together. So, and of course, being who we are, it's not going to sound exactly like them, but it was a great challenge and a great process to try to do that. And
Yeah.
and so it very much affected how we sing. And Sally worked with us a lot on duet singing and who does what, who moves where, having us sing the exact same vowel and move in the exact same way. Really some micro stuff.
Absolutely. I listened to the harmonies last night for the Ralph Stanley stuff, and Erik, oh my God. I mean, you guys sounded like the Stanley brothers. Your voices, I mean, transformed into total.
You
really-
listen, you listen to a certain singer enough, and it just sort of gets. It's almost like your vocal cords start doing their homework without you really trying. So we just listen to hours and hours of Stanley brothers, and I listen to a lot of Ralph Stanley singing. So it's not how I sing for my own songs, but it's really cool to try to choose how much of that approach to like bring into one of his songs, or definitely it affects the way I sing all the other things that I sing too.
And so let's go with the third EP, and that was produced by Kyle Hollingsworth from String Cheese, right?
Yep.
And that just took on a whole new direction of how he. Talk about how he produced that, because a lot of the songs on that are like the festival type songs that people wanted to hear,
face
right?
melting,
And him being a
booty shaking,
keyboardist, right?
Yeah.
Probably took on a whole new. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean, it
sorry.
added this other dimension of what we do. I think he plays on at least one, if not two or three of the songs. Like it's even hard to remember what we recorded and what we just jammed, because he had a Wurlitzer set up in the studio, and at any moment during the song he would come down and just start playing out something that he wanted. He'd point to you and sort of hand you a part, but he did a lot of his communication via music, and he speaks most loudly with the 88 keys, so he would do a lot of that with us. We'd sit there, and we recorded a bunch of stuff that we might use later or we might not, but that was just, he just had it in mind to loosen us up before a take. He'd go, okay, we're gonna take this one idea and expand it, and then we'd just sort of relax into our improvisational minds for 5 or 6 minutes, and then do a take of a song that we played 10 times in a row.
Wow.
So he's looking like that. He's a fighting general. He likes to lead from the front and get on the keyboard and play with the band.
And how did they all came out at different times? So you did the one first. It's all three of them are coming out at the same time, right? They weren't available pre.
Yeah, we
Right.
recorded them 2 months apart.
Right,
each,
okay.
Starting in July, and then we released them sequentially too. And then now this month is the first time that you can get it all in one place.
And you can get it at hotbutteredrum.net. That's the website. And so I just wanted to touch on a couple of the songwriting, and we're talking about the different ways that other producers help you. But creatively, each one of you yourselves, how do you go about your technique in songwriting? Is there a special way that you write songs? And then again, when you collaborate together.
Yeah.
Is it Nat songs and Erik songs, and then you bring
We write some stuff together, and we write some stuff apart. We're really good at helping each other filter songs and sort of do the last 10 or 15% of writing on songs, which is great. But how I start a lot of songs is I make myself write whether I want to or not. Last year I had my first baby boy, and so while my wife was, like, for the year leading up to it, I made myself write a song every week. So I wrote like 50 songs. A lot of them are just horrible, lame songs, but then some of them were good, and so I made myself do that, and then I keep track of little phrases that I hear in the course of the day on an iPhone or on a pad, things that Brian says, or things that I hear a kid say, or things I see on a billboard, and then I write them all down and then filter through it at the right moment, and then things come.
So are most of them personal experiences? I read, and I'm not sure if it's, I think it might be Erik, I'm not sure. Which father challenged you to write from books?
That was my dad.
Was that your father as well?
Yeah.
So
I wrote a Desert Rat when my dad challenged me to write a song that wasn't from my point of view.
Wow.
And that's led to a lot of good things too, that maybe there's some power in not always limiting yourself to your own personal view and really get into someone else's shoes. But then there's also a lot of power in talking about a very personal experience. So both those things are good things to do.
Yep.
Yeah, and we're talking earlier about the Grateful Dead. We were talking about Warren Haynes, and for me, I mean, I was a Deadhead early on. I followed the Grateful Dead.
Me too.
And then from there, you guys, a San Francisco-based band, right? Were they a big influence on you?
I think early on, both the way that they approached live music and also the way they approached, building their business. That a lot of bands from California, even that are in a wholly different genre, than the Dead, are influenced by that. I mean, they sort of changed the whole music business if you look at it from a top-down perspective, both in terms of how they built their business model, how they wrote their set lists, and also how they changed sound technology. And so many of the innovations that people take for granted now, especially in live music, were built for the Grateful Dead because people would, they would talk about outside the box. Man, there wasn't even a box to find, for a few years there in the 70s, I think. So they would just build Phil Lesh a different speaker cabinet for every string of his bass, and but that led to all these cool sound ideas that have really changed the way people can play live.
Sound ideas and format, and that's what I was getting at. I didn't want to throw that out, that the Grateful Dead, but they really were the godfathers of what this show is about: improvisation across the nation, different genres, right? And the common element seems to be improvisation, and also bands like yourself, the set lists are always changing. And I wanted to, how do you go about that process? So every day, like last night I saw a show, it was fantastic. I had a great amount of covers, some new stuff, some old stuff, and it's always changing. So who picks the set list and how does that work?
Yeah, we always work on it together, and it's a combination of what people want to play that day, and it's fun. We get to switch it up, and sometimes in the course of a tour, we'll for a few days in a row, we'll do the same sequence of songs and get deeper into it, and then sometimes we won't do a song for a long time and mix it up.
Yeah, I would say it's probably we play many more of the same songs from night to night than we used to, just because we really do want to. Every show we play, we want people to hear what's new for us and what's off the most recent album, and if we're playing shows that are more than 80 or 90 miles apart, we're not going to have people, showing up night after night after night. People might come 2 or 3 nights in a row, but they don't mind to hear the same songs. But one of the things we always make sure to do is, change the set list enough, and we can throw different covers in there. And then every time we play a song, it's going to be a little bit different. Certain songs are pretty codified, and they're start to finish. But a lot of our songs have the opportunity to be longer or shorter, even louder, softer, whatever other variables we can switch. Keeps it fun.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming out. I want to first tell us where you're going, right, and where you're going to be this summer, because you got a lot of festivals. Tell us where you're going to be. And,
oh gosh, it's better to just check out our website for festivals.
And that again
but
is hotbutteredrum.net.
This week, we're going to be in Baltimore and DC and Harrisburg and what else?
Bridgeport, Connecticut, and Millheim, Pennsylvania, as well.
Erik, Nat, thank you so
Thank
much
you
for coming.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
We got thrown
Thanks,
into
buddy.
a little improvisation. We can't wait till you get to Philly again. It's not going to be 3 years, right? Next
No,
time.
it'll be
You promised last night,
this
right?
fall, hopefully.
It's going to be a Friday night, I heard.
Yeah, Friday
right?
night. Heck yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm Scott Tamburino, and you watching Tuned In. Thank you.